Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down the complex legal and financial realities of building a life in the Philippines as a foreigner. We're going to map out the entire expat life cycle. It's a journey filled with absolutely incredible opportunities, but as you'll see, it's also governed by a very specific and sometimes unforgiving set of legal rules. So let's get right into it. We have to start with a high-stakes scenario that literally every single expat should be prepared for. Just imagine you spent years here. You bought a home, started a successful business, maybe even got married, and then, out of nowhere, your legal status is challenged. What actually happens to everything you've built? We're asking this right up front because a life built abroad can be remarkably fragile if it isn't structured correctly from day one.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering visas and marriage rules, investing and property limits, grounds for deportation, cancellation and blacklisting, and finally, protecting your assets.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Visas and Marriage Rules. Now, before you even think about long-term residency, your legal stay actually begins within 72 hours before you even land. The Philippines now mandates a completely free registration on their digital etravel system to secure either a green or red QR code. Once you touch down, you'll go through mandatory biometric captures. That means getting your photo taken and your fingerprint scanned by immigration. A central reminder, your passport needs to be valid. Only after you clear those new digital and biometric travel procedures can we really talk about Phase 1 of the long-term journey, which for many means navigating marriage-based visas.
You know, it's pretty fascinating how your home country's diplomatic relationship with the Philippines dictates your entire future here. If your home country has a reciprocity agreement, like the US, UK, or Germany, you're eligible for the 13A immigrant visa. That's a direct path to permanent residency. But if you're from a country without that agreement, places like India or China, you get what's called a temporary resident visa, or TRV. They're functionally similar, but the TRV requires continuous active renewal. You definitely can't just get it and forget it.
The core takeaway you need to remember here is that both of these visas are strictly dependent on a valid, subsisting marriage to a Filipino citizen. The visa is tied entirely to the relationship. If that marriage ends, whether that's through a recognized foreign divorce, a local annulment, or even the tragic death of your spouse, your visa is immediately voided. No exceptions. You are legally required to either downgrade your status to a tourist visa or exit the country entirely. Basically, your residency is only as permanent as your marriage.
Moving on to Section 2, Investing and Property Limits. Once you've got your residency sorted, Phase 2 is putting down roots.
And this is exactly where a lot of foreigners stumble. Because if you want to invest in a booming skyline or buy a piece of paradise in the provinces, you absolutely must understand the constitutional 60-40 rule. Under Philippine law, private land and domestic corporations must be at least 60% Filipino-owned. Foreign equity is capped at a strict maximum of 40%. You cannot simply buy land outright in your own name.
So here's the crucial point. Bypassing these constitutional ownership restrictions isn't some clever workaround. It's a very serious crime. The anti-dummy law specifically targets foreigners who use fake ownership structures, what they call dummies, to pretend a company or property is Filipino-owned when it's actually controlled by a foreigner. Violating this doesn't just mean you lose the property. It carries severe criminal and civil penalties, including actual prison time. You absolutely need legitimate, reliable local partners and thorough due diligence.
However, there is some really great news for investors. Republic Act 12252 was recently signed, and it's a real game changer. It now allows foreign investors to lease private lands for up to 99 years. Previously, this was capped at 75 years. This new 99-year lease completely aligns the Philippines with the competitive policies of neighbors like Singapore and Malaysia. It provides a much more stable horizon for your long-term investments.
But, of course, there's a catch, specifically for the tourism sector. To qualify for that full 99-year lease on a tourism project, you need a minimum investment of $5 million. That's a huge commitment, and they mean business. 70% of that money has to be injected within the first 3 years. And if you violate the lease contract, you're looking at strict fines up to 10 million pesos, or even imprisonment. It's a massive opportunity for sure, but with some very heavy compliance strings attached.
All right, Section 3. Grounds for deportation. This is really the climax of our explainer. We've talked about getting in and investing, but we need to look at how easily a life built abroad can be legally dismantled.
Take a look at this. It's wild to see how these consequences escalate. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all punishment. If you're caught using fraudulent documents, like faking a marriage to get that 13A visa we talked about earlier,
your visa is simply canceled. But look further down the line. Working without a permit or becoming a public charge, depending on government resources, that leads to outright deportation. Commit a serious crime showing moral depravity, you serve prison time first, and then you're deported. And if you're deemed a national security threat or a subversive, it's deportation followed by a permanent lifetime ban.
Now, these aren't just theoretical rules collecting dust in a textbook. The Bureau of Immigration actively deports foreigners for these specific acts. Overstaying is a classic trigger, sure, but notice the modern additions. Online fraud and cybercrime are massive targets right now. Also, and this is huge, foreigners are strictly prohibited from interfering in local politics. Participating in political rallies or campaigns will absolutely get you a one-way ticket home. Holding a visa here means constant, strict compliance with the laws of the host nation.
This brings us to Section 4, Cancellation and Blacklisting. Let's look at how this builds into the formal administrative process. If you cross one of those lines, how exactly do you lose your residency status?
Well, it doesn't just happen overnight. Here is the actual process. It usually starts with a sworn complaint. And yes, sometimes this is filed by an estranged spouse if a marriage turns sour, or by law enforcement. But the really important takeaway here is that while immigration authorities have broad power, you do have the right to due process. You'll receive a notice to explain, and there's a formal investigation. You have the right to legal counsel, to present evidence, and to defend yourself before the Board of Commissioners issues a final decision. Now, if that final decision goes against you, it almost always results in a blacklisted order, or BLO. This is the ultimate penalty. A deportation order triggers a BLO, effectively barring you from ever re-entering the country. And in severe cases, like those involving major crimes or fraud, deported individuals might even face the complete forfeiture of their assets and investments left behind.
Which brings us to Section 5, Protecting Your Assets. This is perhaps the most vital part of our explainer. How do you actually do damage control and protect everything you've built if you suddenly face detention or deportation?
Think about it. If you are suddenly removed from the country, your name legally remains on your local bank accounts, your property titles, and your business registrations. But trying to manage all that from a totally different time zone, locked out of the country, it becomes incredibly difficult. Your family might not even be able to withdraw money to buy groceries or pay the local mortgage, putting your home at serious risk of foreclosure. You need a legal plan in place.
Setting up a power of attorney, or POA, is the exact tool you need here. And it's super important to understand, executing a POA doesn't mean you're giving up control of your life right now. It is simply the ultimate financial safety measure. It ensures that if you are incapacitated, detained, or removed, your life savings and properties are managed by someone you completely trust, exactly according to your pre-written wishes. By formally granting these powers to an agent, you are basically building a legal bridge over a potential crisis. Your designated agent can step in to keep the lights on, they can handle the mortgage, pay the taxes, and even step in to keep your local business running. Without this document, your local assets are essentially frozen the very moment you are forced onto a plane.
So, let's make this actionable for you. Here's your exact checklist for crisis management. I know it's not fun to think about, but these proactive steps provide incredible peace of mind for immigrant families. Get copies of everything. Execute that POA. Talk to your local bank right now, before there's an emergency, to ensure they recognize your specific POA format. Give clear, calm instructions to your family about exactly who to call if authorities ever show up at your door.
And that brings us to our final thought. We have covered a ton of ground today, from the new digital arrival procedures and marriage visas, all the way to the heavy realities of the anti-dummy law and deportation. But the overarching lesson here is preparedness. Are your assets truly secure? Or are you just one unexpected legal misstep or one marital dispute away from losing everything you've built abroad? Take the time to audit your legal standing today. Protect your roots so you can truly enjoy your life overseas.